Hello again, friends. Here we are again with a brand new request. This one from Cozy Mas Math Math Cozy Math Math Cozy Mo- Math Mas Cozy Mas a brand new request made by a friend of the channel. And by the rules that I have just made up, first request skip the line. So today we will start with The Wolf and the Seven Kids, as written by the Grimm brothers, for Cozy Mathimas, a friend of the channel, and then move on to The Daughter of the Sun, a Danish tale requested by Teresa. Before I start the stories, I want to say thank you because I am now up to 65 subscribers, only 35 more people, and we reach 100. If I keep my current rate of subscriptions, let's see, 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus I should reach 100 in about 5 years. I have a goal. Woot! But if any of you can help my tiny channel grow, I would be beholden. On to the stories. The Wolf and the Seven Young Kids. Once upon a time. Oh, today is starting out quite well. There was an old goat who had 7 young kids, and she loved them as any mother loves her children. One day she decided to go into the forest and fetch some food, so she called all 7 of them. You know what? This is going to bother me until I check. Let's see. Google, how many kids can a goat have at once? Huh. An average goat can rear well 2 kids. Goats are known to give birth to as many as 5 kids at a time, but the birth of such large numbers affects the health of the goat. Oh, that poor goat. She called her children to her and said, "Dear children, I'm going into the forest, and I want you to be on your guard against the wolf. If he gets in here, he'll eat you all up. But you can recognize him right away by his gruff voice and black feet." Why are you leaving the children alone if you know there's a wolf in the neighborhood? This seems like a terrible idea. Maybe you can get one of the 7 dwarves to babysit. I hear they are very responsible when it comes to children. "Dear mother," the kid said, "we'll take good care of ourselves. Just go and don't worry about leaving us here." The old goat bleated and went on her way with an easy mind. But it was not long before someone knocked at the door and called out, "Open up, dear children. Your mother's back and has brought something for each of you." Well, that seems suspiciously fast. But the kids knew it was the wolf by his gruff voice. "We're not opening up," they cried out. "You're not our mother. She has a lovely soft voice, and yours is gruff. You're the wolf." "Well, don't tell him how to get past your defenses, you silly creatures." The wolf went away to a shopkeeper and bought a big piece of chalk, which he ate, and it made his voice soft. Why? Google? All right, a quick search of Google tells me that it's an old wives' tale that eating chalk will make your voice softer. Why? Why would anyone try this? Then he returned, knocked on the door, and called out, "Open up, dear children. Your mother's back and has brought something for each one of you." But the wolf had his black paw on the window sill, and when the children saw it, they cried out, "We're not opening up. Our mother doesn't have a black paw like yours. You're the wolf." Seriously, kids? You're going to give up the ghost just like that? Now he's going to go buy gloves or something. The wolf ran to the baker and said, "I've stubbed my toe. Put some dough on it for me." "Oh, yes, cover your foot with yeast. That will make it all better." Also, is the baker another wolf? If not, why is there not a lot of screaming about a talking wolf? Fairy tales are weird. After the baker covered his paw, he ran to the miller and said, "Sprinkle some white flour on my paw." The miller thought, "This wolf wants to trick someone," so he refused. But the wolf said, "If you don't do it, I'll eat you up." This frightened the miller, so he made the wolf's paw white. Now the villain went to the house for a third time, knocked and said, "Open up, children. Your dear mother's back and has brought you something from the forest." "Don't do it. It's a trap." The kids called out, "First show us your paw so we know that you're really our dear mother." He put his paw on the window sill, and they saw that it was white. They believed him and opened the door. Yet who else but the wolf stepped inside? Dun, dun, dun! The kids were terrified and tried to hide themselves. The first kid ran and jumped under the table, the second into the bed, the third into the oven. That that seems like a terrible place to hide from someone who wants to eat you. The fourth into the kitchen. Another bad idea. The fifth into a cupboard, the sixth under the wash basin, and the seventh into the clock case. However, the wolf began to find them and make short shift of them. Short shrift? Short Noun, short shrift. Rapid and unsympathetic dismissal. Curt treatment. The judge gave short shrift to an argument based on the right to free speech. Archaic. Little time between condemnation and execution or punishment. Well, now we know. He swallowed one after the other down his throat. Oh, the humanity! But he was unable to find the youngest in the clock case. Hide and seek winner of the year. When the wolf had satisfied his desire, he tottered off, lay down beneath a tree on a green meadow, and fell asleep. Shortly after, the goat came home from the forest, and oh, what a sight met her eyes! The door to her house was wide open. The table, chairs, and benches were turned over. The wash basin lay on the ground in pieces. The cover and pillows were stripped off the bed. She looked for her children, but they were nowhere to be found. Finally, when she got near the youngest, she heard a soft voice calling, "Dear mother, I'm in the clock case." Huh, most stressful game of Marco Polo ever. She drew him out, and he told her that the wolf had come and eaten up all the others. Well, you can imagine how she wept over her poor children. This is a very upsetting story. I think a content warning should be included. At length she went outside, still grieving, while the youngest kid ran beside her. They reached the meadow. She found the wolf snoring so loudly that the tree branches above him were trembling. She examined him from all sides and saw that something was moving and wiggling in his stuffed stomach. Gross. Oh, God, she thought, could it be that my poor children that he gobbled up for his supper are still alive? Blah! She sent the little kid home to fetch scissors, needle, and a thread. Then she cut the monster's belly open, and no sooner did she make the first cut than a kid stuck out his head. I've seen a movie like this. As she cut some more, all six of them jumped out, one after the other. They were all still alive, and had not suffered the least bit of harm, for the monster's gluttony had been so great that he had swallowed them whole. This wolf needs to slow down and learn how to chew his food. Wait! What am I saying? What joy there was! They hugged their dear mother and hopped about like a tailor at his own wedding. Weird analogy. But the goat said, "Now go and look for some stones in the field. We'll fill the godless beast's belly with them while he's still asleep." Wait, he's still alive? You just gutted him. Are wolves immortal? The seven poor, traumatized, shell-shocked kids, I may have added some adjectives, quickly fetched some stones and put as many as they could into his stomach. Then the old goat sewed him up again with such speed that he did not notice a thing, nor did he even stir. Well, that is one heavy sleeper. When the wolf had slept to his content, he stood up, and since the stones in his stomach had him very thirsty, he wanted to go to the well and have a drink. However, as he began to walk, he swayed back and forth, and the stones in his body knocked against each other and rattled. Then he cried out, "What's that in my belly rumbling? Could it be my old bones are crumbling? 6 little kids I thought I ate. They're more like stones with all their weight." Now he's a poet as well as a mass murderer. Nice. When he reached the well and leaned over to drink the water, the heavy stones pulled him in, and he was drowned in a miserable way. Well, that well is ruined. Upon seeing this, the 7 kids ran up to the well and cried aloud, "The wolf is dead! The wolf is dead! Sing it high, sing it low, let them know the wicked wolf is dead!" Da 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 da. Sorry. Then they took their mother and danced for joy around the well. I see they did a little jig of despair. What do the Grimm brothers have against the end? Well, friends, it is not the end for us. Onward to Teresa's request of The Daughter of the Sun. That is another story I have never heard of. So it should be fun. Here we go. Once upon a time, there was a mighty king who married a princess from another country. They lived very happily together, but to their great sorrow they had no children. Finally, after many years, the queen gave birth to a daughter, and now there was great joy in the castle and throughout the entire land. Before the child was named, they sent for an old wise woman who lived in the country. She was to predict the child's fate. At that time, such was the custom. The woman came, and when she saw the child's little hand, she was amazed beyond words. This startled the king, and he asked if his child was to be cursed with an evil fate. "Both good and bad, as you take it," answered the old woman. "She shall become the most beautiful girl who has ever lived on earth." The king thought that was something to be happy about. "Yes," added the old woman, "but she will be so beautiful that even the sun will fall in love with her if he is allowed to see her. And it shall be her fate that when she turns 15 she shall have a child. The sun himself will be the father." The sun can do that? This seemed to the king the strangest news he had ever heard, but he gave the wise woman a generous gift and let her go. The king then determined that everything possible must be done to avert this fate. As the girl grew up, she became so well liked and beautiful that no one had seen her equal. When she was 12 years old, the king had a tower built that only had one window and it faced north. I wonder if she could see Lettuce's tower from there. The daughter was put inside with a playmate and nurses, who were strictly instructed never to let her out lest the sun would shine on her. Well, at least she wasn't alone, right? The daughter longed for free nature, and most of all she wanted to see the golden sun again. But she had to settle for living in her prison. Thus some time passed. Meanwhile, during the long, hot summer days, the sun burned the clay walls of the tower so that the outside had cracked in several places. What was worse, one day when the young princess had fish to eat, she took one of the longest fish bones, and with this bone she began to drill into the clay wall on the southern side of the tower. She only wanted to get a little peephole, but when she had finally made a small hole, a ray of sunlight crept through and hit her on the chest. When the nurses saw the hole, they quickly closed it up. However, the damage was done, and the following year the princess gave birth to a daughter. Wow, the sun works fast. When the king heard what had happened, he became very bitter. The nurses were severely punished, and he himself did not want to see the child. He had her taken from her mother and set out in the wilderness so that she would perish. How very Greek of him. This king is a very bad man. The little child lay there, but she did not perish. The dew comforted her with its moisture, and the sun warmed her with its rays, and finally she was found by a loving person. A young prince from the neighboring kingdom had lost his way. He had found the child where she lay, and since she was so lovely, he took her home with him to be brought up. As the child grew, she became so beautiful that he had never seen anything so beautiful. This reminds me of a really poorly written romance novel. The prince's mother wanted him to marry, but he could not be persuaded to do so. He wanted to wait until his foster child grew up, and then she would be his wife. This is called grooming, my friends, and it is a very bad thing. When she did grow up, she became the most beautiful maiden anyone had ever seen. The prince then asked her if she would be his wife. She replied that she would never belong to any man unless he could tell her who his father was. Oh, unexpected. She had a will of her own. I actually like this story. The prince could not do that, so he had to leave her with the matter unsettled. He then arranged for an apartment for her to live in one wing of the castle, because his mother did not like to see her. Here she had her own household with servant girls and everything. The prince asked these girls to question her from time to time in order to find out who her father was. This didn't lead to anything, because she always answered, "My parents are a cat and a dog. If you don't want me, then jiggity jog." Now the prince's mother pressed harder than ever to get her son married. She had a hall in the castle decorated, where she hung pictures of all the princesses from far and near, but none of them could compare in beauty with the prince's foster daughter. I take it back, this story is deeply unsettling. Finally, the prince was forced to decide on one of the princesses whose pictures were hung in the hall. He courted her, and she said yes. The wedding was held with great splendor, but the foreign princess had heard about the prince's foster child, whom he was supposed to love more than her, and therefore she was jealous of her right from the start. The daughter of the sun was not at the wedding, but on the wedding day a boy was to carry some of the finest wedding food over to her. She thanked him and accepted the food, but then she asked the boy to wait. She then commanded the firewood to place itself in the fireplace. She commanded the sun's rays to light the fire, and they obeyed her. Then she commanded a pan to sit over the fire and the butter to go into the pan. Next she fried two golden fish. One held the prince's name, and the other the princess's name, in its mouth. When the fish were finished, she asked the boy to take them to the prince in return for the wedding meal that he had given her. Did, did anyone know she could do that? When the prince and the princess and the wedding guests saw this work of art, they were very surprised. So, no, they didn't. But the prince's jealousy awoke, and she said that she too could make a masterpiece. She had no peace of mind until she went into the kitchen and got started. But for her, the kitchen was a very dangerous place in the house, for she had hardly been in a kitchen before. Once there, she knocked over the large frying pan and was scalded and burned. She died soon afterwards. That that was a very unexpected and dark turn of events. The prince was free again, but his mother gave him no peace. He was forced to choose a new bride. Shortly afterward, there was another wedding at the castle. The bride and the groom rode in a golden carriage to the church, where they were married. This young princess had also heard about the prince's foster daughter, but had not yet seen her. When they now came driving back from the church, the daughter of the sun was sitting on a chair which she had put out on the sloping roof. She did not fall down, for she had commanded the sunbeams to hold her chair. The new bride could now see her, and when she saw how beautiful she was, 10 times more beautiful than she herself, she became very jealous. That is a whole lot of she's. I think I'm going to name some of these people. Let's start with the daughter of the sun. Let's call her Diana. The bride said that it was no great art to sit out there on the roof. She could do that too. The bride would not rest until she too had her chair put out on the roof. But then she fell down and killed herself. If this keeps up, the prince is going to get himself a reputation. The prince was now a widower for the second time, and he thought that his mother would surely leave him alone. But nothing helped. Once more he had to choose a wife, and for the third time a wedding was held at the castle. Diana was not at the party, but when it was time to eat, a boy was sent over with some of the finest foods for her. Diana asked him to wait in order to take something back in return. He now saw how she commanded, and how everything obeyed. The firewood went into the fireplace, the sun rays lit the fire, the flour formed itself into dough, the dough became an artistic pastry, and moved itself into the oven. The boy was very surprised at this, but he was most surprised when Diana, who was standing and looking into the oven, suddenly crept in to fix a little of the baked goods. She stayed in the oven for a long time, and when she came out with the pastry, she was more beautiful than ever. The boy carried the pastry back to the prince and princess, and he did not forget to tell them how Diana had taken it from the oven. The princess then said that she herself could do the same thing, and that's a stupid idea. She lit a large fire in the baking oven and climbed in with the pastry. but she burned herself so badly that she died immediately after they had taken her out again. Oh, so many jokes, none of them appropriate. Now the prince was a widower for the third time, and it did not matter whether the mother scolded or begged, he would not marry again unless he could get the one he loved. And I'm pretty sure no one else was going to say yes. I mean, seriously, marrying this guy's a death sentence. A long time passed, and one day he went to visit Diana. He asked her if she would not tell him who her father was, but she answered him, as always, "My parents are a cat and a dog. If you don't want me, then jiggity jog." She wanted to cook a meal for him, and he saw then, as had happened before, how everything obeyed her. Diana was in the kitchen, but the prince was sitting in the living room, and he was here playing with the mortar that she had taken down from the shelf. It happened that she called out for the mortar, but the prince held on to it so that it could not come. What? Why is he? Never mind. Then Diana became angry and forgot herself. She shouted, "Mortar, where are you? Don't you know that I am the daughter of the sun, and everything must obey me?" The prince listened. Now he could tell Diana who her father was. She then would have to become his wife. So unsettling. A wedding was held, and they lived happily well together for many years. Seriously, what do you all have against the end? What what happened to Diana's mother? How did the son feel about this marriage? For a Danish tale, why is it so Greek? Uh, the more fairy tales I read, the less I understand them. Well, please like, share, and subscribe. Please press the notification bell so you can always know when I release my stories. And if you would be so kind as to leave a comment, I would really appreciate it. Finally, if you would like to, I can be supported on Patreon. I have made a very special message for my friends there. I would like to thank you, my wonderful Patreon friends. Thanks to you and your support, I can now afford this fancy cup of coffee. Why, without you, Robinson, Ida, Darren, Teresa, Brick's Journey, and Karen, I would never be able to. Wait! I ordered before them! How did they get their food first? I would never be able to afford to do any of this, and don't leave that plate there! Hey! You have my humble and eternal thank you. Waiter! Hey, waiter! It's because I'm a puppet!